taking the vote from a member who assumes other privileges is unconstitutional. Let me repeat. Every member has a vote. You came there to represent your constituency. It does not entitle you to special privileges in Parliament. It does not entitle you to the second deputy speaker. And those positions come with extra perks and privileges and responsibilities. So if you elect or you are chosen and you accept to take on those extra privileges and those perks and other things, which require you to do things differently, then it stands to reason that you cannot represent your people ordinarily and still exercise those privileges. And you have the prerogative not to accept it. So for me, to say that it is unconstitutional for a member to lose their vote because they become deputy speaker and have to be a neutral arbiter, I disagree. If those who are against this ruling are attacking the constitutionality of it, I won't have a problem. But where they say it is an interference in Parliament's process, I have a problem. It's a bit nuanced, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Kofi Awochi's just made the point that he thinks that the problem itself is with the Constitution. Because if you're looking at, Article 104, it says, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters of Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all members of Parliament present. The Speaker shall have neither an original or casting votes, where the votes. So that's the point. Now it says the Speaker. He says he's a deputy speaker. So the Speaker is not a member of Parliament, and that's, simply put, cannot vote. But here, no reference is made to a deputy speaker. And so in this case, can it then be interpreted to mean a deputy speaker or the one in the chair when presiding cannot vote?
Well, honestly, I think when you have some of these interpretation problems, you look to other authorities. And the greatest authority on these things is Eskime. And if you read Eskime, the Parliamentary Procedure Book, it is clear. Listen, it says member. A member means an ordinary member. So an ordinary member in the normal course of their duties has a vote. But when a member assumes a parliamentary position beyond what they were voted to come and do, which is a privilege accorded within Parliament, and which privilege requires you to act as a neutral arbiter, and for which you take certain perks, you cannot keep what you are holding and also take what you are getting. So that for me, there's no problem. There's no problem because you can remain a member and keep your vote. But if you move from a member to what is essentially a super member, then you can return the vote. And if we are in doubt, let's look at the people who started this thing. Read Eskime. It is very clear. Okay? Now, that is why I say it is not unconstitutional for somebody who elects to move beyond his ordinary membership to a deputy speakership, give up his vote, at least for the period that he is deputy speaker. Note that Parliament can actually elect a member of Parliament to be speaker.
Yes.
But immediately they elect a member to be speaker, that speaker relinquishes his seat. And then you have to have a by-election. To that extent, therefore, if the deputy speakers were permanent, we would have to do re-elections also in their constituencies. But because they are temporary, for the period that they are deputy speakers, they lose the vote. When they return, they take the vote. I don't see how you can have somebody being a neutral arbiter moderating a debate, and then later he gets down to come and vote one way or the other.
Yeah, but he represents a people.
Speakers have power.
Yes, Kofi, he represents a constituency. Those people deserve to be heard.
Yes.
So,
as an ordinary member, when he goes to become deputy speaker, he is not representing his constituency. He has elected to take a parliamentary position. At that point, he is not properly so-called an ordinary member of Parliament. So the point is simple. You can choose to represent your constituency by remaining an ordinary member. But when you become the speaker, you are taken on a parliamentary position.
Yes,
you have elected.
Yeah, but if you
not
look
to represent your constituency, but for that small period to do a work for Parliament.
Well, if you look at Article 96.1, which says there shall be 2 deputy speakers of Parliament, it says who shall be elected by members of parliament from among the members of parliament, and both of whom shall not be members of the same political party. The law says they should be members of parliament. So they are members of parliament.
Yes.
And if they are members of parliament, why can't they vote? Because members of parliament should vote.
Because deputy speakers are a different class of parliamentarians. Otherwise, they will not also be elected. Now, when you are going to be elected, you are first nominated. You understand the job and what it requires you to do and what it requires you to get, and then what it requires you to give up. And you can actually decline the nomination. You can elect not to become deputy speaker. I remember very vividly on the day that they were being elected, I was telling somebody that it would be strategically wrong for NPP to take that position because they will lose a vote if their person ascends. Of course, there's a difficulty because one has to come from here, one has to come from here. But I could see that problem. Okay, so for me, once you choose to take the position, you have to take what comes with the position. I hold the view that going forward, we may have to use senior officers of parliament for some of these things if members want to retain their votes. For the simple reason that when somebody ascends to the deputy speaker position, they have sufficient power to determine how a vote goes. You remember that recently, Joe Osewusu overruled the speaker's decision. Okay, so clearly that kind of decision or that kind of action cannot be said not to have been informed by his partisan inclinations.
So let's look at this other scenario, Kofi. So you have a case, for instance. You have a loan agreement for, say, a facility for the people of Asante Bekwai. He's member of parliament for Bekwai, First Deputy Speaker Joe Osewusu. He's the one presiding. It has to be put to a vote. Now, the people of Bekwai have sent him there to go and be their representative. Here is a facility coming to the people of Bekwai, and he has to vote. Are you saying under the circumstances, just because he's in the seat, even though he's member of parliament representing the people of Bekwai, who in this case need this facility, he cannot vote and should not vote?
So what I'm saying is, if he wanted to represent his people and just vote, then he should not go and be the deputy on that day. He was voted for by his people not to become deputy speaker, but to become a parliamentarian for them. He elects to take a parliamentary job, which comes with perks, rights, responsibilities, and also some of these conditions. So on that day when he feels very strongly about being a member of parliament, he should just be a member of parliament.
But the law says deputy speaker should be members of parliament. Through no fault of his, he's become a deputy speaker. His caucus has nominated him. He's been voted for, but his people still demand representation. And here's a project that concerns them. Why shouldn't he vote?
I have explained it, but the point I'm making is, for me, that is where the issue is with the Constitution. The speaker cannot be a member. If we think that this voting thing is going to be a problem, and it will be a problem, we should consider having deputy speakers who may not necessarily be members of parliament. There are very senior clerks and other persons there who really, I think, can do the work. And note that ours is a hybrid. Okay, we have devised a system, okay, between the English and other systems. So nothing stops us if we think this is a critical issue. And I bet you it is critical. From evolving this arrangement where we can have a senior clerk of parliament or somebody close preside. So members of parliament will be members of parliament. Because I really believe that having the person who has to moderate the debate with power to overrule, power to, see people and allow them to speak, power to stop other people's phones, power to direct the debate. If that person has a vested interest, nobody should tell you that he will not be neutral.
Just by way of clarification.
Some people can be impartial. Some people can have a position, but they can still be objective. But you cannot assume that for everybody. And I said just recently, the speaker, the substantive speaker, had cause to publicly rebuke Joe Osewusu. And the speaker felt that he was acting partisanly by overruling him. I think these things are going to get worse if this is going to be allowed, where you can come and debate, you can come and when you finish you go back and go and vote, you can come and moderate, when you finish you go back and go and vote. I think we are deluding ourselves by thinking that we will get through this without any strife. I think this formula will create more problems.
Just by way of clarification,
want to vote, they should remain members.
Just by way of clarification, are you suggesting that going forward, you should think of amending the constitution so deputy speakers will not be members of parliament?
Yes, I think we should amend the constitution for a number of things. For instance, ministers should not come from parliament. That is the real problem with the separation of powers. And I think when we amend the constitution, knowing we have this kind of problem, and by the way, Ghanaians want parliament to be evenly split, because that is where you get proper debate. That is where you get policies and things that government brings scrutinized properly. So this is a good thing. And if this is going to continue, then we have to resolve this issue of deputy speakers voting. And I think if we are going to amend the constitution, we might as well amend it so that a senior member who is not a parliamentarian, a senior clerk or somebody, can preside. Why not?
Hi, Kofi, this is Kojo.
Yes, Kojo.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons you've put forward why you think it's not a good idea for a member of parliament to, in the capacity of a deputy speaker, to vote is that it creates a certain, or it allows for a certain bias. So, for example, if the speaker is away, the deputy is sitting in, and there is an issue on which the floor is split on partisan lines, and he, as the sitting speaker at the time, or the deputy speaker who is sitting, has all that power that you described, the power to sway the cause of the vote and sway the debate and so forth. He has all that power, and then he also votes. That is unfair bias. But it occurs to me that whether he votes or not, he can still abuse that power in favor of his party. So removing the vote doesn't create any extra fairness, does it?
But it improves the fairness. The fact that you can't have it all does not mean you cannot have some. I agree with you that once he sits there, he can sway the debate, he can move it in a certain way. And I said recently we had a situation where Ozewusu overruled the substantive speaker. Now, if he has that power, and on top of that you add a vote, you are creating worse problems. So for me, I think it is right that if he's going to take that power, which his people in Bekwai did not give him, then you should give up that. Which is also why I'm saying, knowing the things you are saying and the things I am saying, why don't we, in amending the constitution, say that parliamentarians should remain parliamentarians, since they want to represent their people so badly and retain their vote at all times? They should just do that. If the speaker is not available, the senior-most clerk of parliament should preside. Why not?
So as things stand, the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution to say that the deputy speaker can vote. We are hearing minority members, suggesting they will not go by the Supreme Court's ruling. Now, you are someone who doesn't agree with the Supreme Court's ruling, but do you agree with the minority's stance that they will not go by it?
I don't agree with the minority. I accept the Supreme Court's ruling, but I don't agree with it. I accept it because it is their proper place to determine these matters. I don't agree with it because they are saying if you become deputy speaker and assume extra powers, you should still keep your votes. So that I disagree with. The minority members are seeing the inherent problems that will be caused and the disadvantages that will be visited on them. And that is why they are resisting. And I'm taking pains to pass these issues and separate them. So what I'm saying is the problem is inherent in the effect of the ruling. So I can understand what the minority is saying. But I disagree with them if they say they are not going to accept. We need to keep our Supreme Court sacrosanct. Let us criticize them. Somebody might even go for a review and make good arguments. That is what civilized people do. But we cannot say that when the Supreme Court has ruled, we will say we will obey it and resort to anarchy. That is wrong. So I expect that somebody should go for a review. And whatever it is, whether the review works or it doesn't work, this is one other reason why we need to get down to this constitutional review issue and deal with it. Our constitution is almost 30 years old. It is breaking at the seams. It is showing its inadequacies. It is time for us to deal with those inadequacies and fashion a better constitution so that we don't end up crashing the Fourth Republic.